she doesn't want to get married. She's 25. Live your best life. I think at 25, I was not thinking for marriage at all.
And I have said that same thing multiple times, and I still stand by it. Listen, I think sometimes people get it twisted. I'm gonna keep it 100. If I wanted to be married in my 20s and have a kid, I could have did that. Cause trust, the opportunities was there. I was engaged in my 20s. It was not the best relationship, so I called it off. However, when I was in my 20s, I wasn't looking to be someone's mother. And I think people need to start respecting that when an individual is not ready, excuse me, not ready to get married and to have children, stop trying to force that on them.
So when Michael B, when Michael B and Lori broke up, the internet was very divisive.
I mean, some people became full-on therapists, Shantae. They are full-on relationship therapists, honey.
So real fast. So most men were, upset at the situation. And like, this man asked you to marry him. He's a great guy. This is your opportunity. And the women were like, oh no, she's 25. It's okay. So between the two, what is your stance? So before I go into the real question, what is your stance on it? What do you think? Which side are you?
I don't think age has anything to do with it. I feel like if he was the one for her, and this is, if this is how this scenario is being presented, because I hate speaking on like other people's relationships, especially when it's celebrities, because you just don't know. But if this is how it is playing out, I would say it has nothing to do with her age. He's just not the one. So that's just what it is. If she loved him and she really wanted to spend the rest of her life with this person, she would have. So yeah, I wouldn't say it has anything to do with age.
I'm in full agreement with Team Della. If she wanted to be with him, she would have chosen to be with him, no matter age, whatever the case may be. None of us know what goes on inside anybody's relationship. So we hear rumors, right? The last time I checked, I don't think either of them have spoken publicly about the relationship or confirmed what exactly happened. With that being said, if she wanted to marry that man, she would have said, I do.
Or I will.
Yeah, it's hard to have an opinion on it when we're on the outside looking in and we don't really know what transpired in that relationship. I have spoken on this many times on the panel, and the guys give me flack for this. But I, however, am a person that's like, when I was 25, I wasn't checking for nobody that was 10 years older than me. Like, that's just me. So I feel like sometimes men get into these relationships with these younger women knowing that it's a recipe for disaster. Y'all don't really have anything in common. However, it could be perceived differently when you're celebrities. So maybe it's different. I don't know. She usually tends to like older men. So, but I think she's a young girl living her life. I don't condone how she's moving, but to each is his own. We'll never know the full story until one of them speaks out on it and say, this is exactly what happened. But if she don't want him, he can come on over here. He can, Michael B, if you're listening, if you're watching,
shoot your shot, girl.
And just Tim, holler at her.
Right here, baby. Come on home.
So anybody else wants to get their input on that?
Yes, I do I want to give some. I haven't spoke on it because again, I don't know the relationship and I'm not getting paid by any of them to give any input, right? Like it's just been very interesting week seeing different perspectives online. Like, oh, here we go, another Black woman wasting her 20s away. And then there's the see when she goes off with a white girl, y'all better not say anything. There was that. It's like it's been a lot of different comments this entire week. For me, what I think, I don't know the relationship. If it was marriage, if that's true that he proposed and she declined, then that was her choice. Marriage is a serious situation. Like, not just to say yes is not okay. You don't know the ins and outs. Yeah, he seems like a great guy on face value, but we don't know what happened behind closed doors. We don't know those details. She's 25. but she's also in a very different demographic. She's rich. I mean, like, a lot of people don't realize she has other opportunities than the typical general Black woman that they want to group her and generalize her with, right? So she's in a different echelon. I'm sure she has more options. I hope that she doesn't look back and regret this, because that could happen. But that's all I got to say about it.
So I was 25 when I got married. I got divorced 11 years later. So I was married for 11 years. My husband was 7 years older than me. In the moment when we got married, you couldn't tell me a thing. That man loved the heck out of me, drove however many hours to New York just to surprise me while I was working for 3 months in New York. Drove through hell, sleet, rain, the gamut. Fast forward 11 years later, I reflect. We had so many things that we just really didn't have in common. In the moment, it was great in the moment. But our music selection was somewhat different. And those things seem minor in the moment, right? Music selection, who would think that's a big deal because it's not, right? Wrong. Think of concerts. Think about riding in the car. Think about all those things that you think are minor, but they're really not. It's day-to-day living. So I just say to each his own. Some marriages work. It depends on the individual. But again, I think personally, when you meet that person that's right for you, you'll know.
And let me just add before, because the chat will go in like, that's the reason why she divorced. No, that was not the reason she divorced. Okay. We won't go into her business, but that ain't it.
That's passionate.
That ain't it. She didn't like that.
It was music. That's why she got divorced. No.
Girl, let them think. They will be like, she
they will go in on you. Well, here we go, another bitter Black woman.
We definitely won't go into that. That would be, I could write a book.
But I definitely see your standpoint on that. It's like when there's a big enough age gap, there is different similarities, and like you said, it's that day-to-day stuff that you might not connect on because of the age difference.
Did we have somebody last week who was like 60 dating 20-year-olds?
Oh yeah, he was 63
he
dating
was 64.
64 dating 27.
Going to meet their family. We're not going to talk about him. He was so nice, but I just
He's sweet. But I'm just saying that's a prime example of age difference. Was like music. What are you really going to listen
to? Preference, though. That was his preference,
right? So my question. So let's take Lori out of the situation. Do you think that sometimes, and we'll get into the men's side, but right now let's just talk about women. Do you think that sometimes women in their early 20s, they just feel like, oh, I'm in my 20s. I want to live it up. I have all of this time before I can get married. And sometimes that time just dwindles away. So do you think that it's wasted time as it relates to relationships? Because let's just be honest, in other cultures, I mean, because that's the only thing I can base it off of, they preach marry early. Even if you don't get it right, because some of them on their second marriage now, but you marry early so you can get your legacy out of the way, and then you have fun later, I like to say. So do you think that we kind of do it backwards?
I don't think so.
I've always spoken.
Okay, one person at a time. Let Mika go, and then you'll go to him.
No, I don't think so. I think your 20s are the time you're supposed to enjoy and do the things you wouldn't do when you're 40, because at 40, I should, if I want to have children, that's the time I want to be a role model to my children and set an example. Where I'm in my 20s, don't check for me to be no role model. I'm going to be in the club or, drinking those drinks or taking them bottles to the head. But when I'm 40, I won't be doing that. So I think it's that's the perfect time to not think about settling down. Maybe wait until you're like 30 plus to settle down and have that marriage and have the kids. And maybe that's why she doesn't want to get married. She's 25. Live your best life. I think at 25, I was not thinking for marriage at all.
And I have said that same thing multiple times, and I still stand by it. Listen, I think sometimes people get it twisted. I'm going to keep it 100. If I wanted to be married in my 20s and have a kid, I could have did that. Because trust, the opportunities was there. I was engaged in my 20s. It was not the best relationship, so I called it off. However, when I was in my 20s, I wasn't looking to be someone's mother. And I think people need to start respecting that when an individual is not ready, excuse me, not ready to get married and to have children, stop trying to force that on them, because you're not the ones that's going to have to raise those kids. You're not the ones that's going to have to take care of your husband. So why force it on somebody when they're not ready? I think your 20s are for you to live your life. That's what I was doing. I don't knock anybody that wanted to get married and have children in their 20s. It just wasn't for me. And I don't regret it at all. I really don't.
I definitely agree with Tam and Tamika. I just feel like in your 20s, that's when you're supposed to find out who you really are, find out yourself. And I hate to say it, but you got to get that hoe out you, you know what I'm saying? But one thing I hate that a lot of men say is that, oh, your time is up. It's too late. Why is it too late? Just because I didn't get married in my 20s, just because I didn't have children or anything like that. And I'm closer to, I'm in my 30s. So now they're telling me, or they're saying to other women that it's too late, your time is up. Like, I don't get that. And I hate that men, say that or think like that, because just because we're not in our 30s and we're not married with no children doesn't mean that something's wrong with us or it's too late, because it's not. I chose to enjoy myself, have fun, and live, and I don't regret nothing I've done. So now that I'm older, I do feel like it's time for me to settle down. But in my 20s, absolutely not.